Hello ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another video. Today I have you guys our very first audiobook for Riordran's Magnus Chase. Now this is something that I've wanted to do on my channel. I said it in my last video, but from this point on I will have a playlist of chapters and fragments of this story in a playlist. I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description below, but what I'm going to be doing is reading this book so you can go ahead and listen to while you're playing a video game, or maybe you need to read this book for a class so you guys could just listen along or follow me in the book. So let's go ahead without further ado and start chapter 1, and it goes off by the name of Good Morning, You're Going to Die. Yeah, I know, you guys are going to read this about how I died in agony. You're probably going to be like, wow, that sounds cool, Magnus. Can I die in agony too? No, just no. Don't go jumping off any rooftops, don't go into any highway, or set yourself on fire. It doesn't work that way. You will not end up where I ended up. Besides, you wouldn't want to deal with my situation, unless you got some crazy desire to see undead warriors hacking one another to pieces, swords flying up giant noses, and dark elves in snappy outfits. You shouldn't even think about fighting the wolf-headed doors. My name is Magnus Chase, and I'm 16 years old. This is a story of how my life went downhill after I got myself killed. My day started out normal enough. I was sleeping on the sidewalk under a bridge in Public Garden when a guy kicked me awake and said, "They're after you." By the way, I've been homeless for the past 2 years. Some of you may think, "Oh, how sad." Others may think, "Haha, loser." But if you saw me on the street, 99% of you would walk right past me like I'm invisible. You'd pray, "Don't let him ask me for money," or you wonder if I'm older than I look, because surely a teenager wouldn't be wrapped in a stinky old sleepy bag stuck under a middle of Boston winter. Somebody should help that boy. Then they'd keep walking. Whatever, I don't need your sympathy. I'm used to being laughed at. I'm definitely used to being ignored. Let's move on. The bum who woke me up was a guy called Blitz. As usual, he looked like he'd be running through a dirty hurricane. His wiry black hair was full of paper scraps and twigs. His face, the color of his saddle leather and fleckled with ice. His beard curled in odd directions. Snow caked from the bottom of his trench coat where it dragged around his feet. Blitz being about 5 feet 5, and his eyes were so dilated the irises were all pupil. His permanently alarmed expression made him look like he might start screaming at any moment. I blinked the guck out of my eyes. My mouth tasted like day-old hamburger. My sleeping bag was warm, and I really didn't want to get out of it. "Who's after me?" "Not sure." Blitz rubbed his nose, which had been broken so many times it zigzagged like an old lightning bolt. "They're handing out flyers with your name and picture." I cursed. Random police and park rangers I could deal with. Truant officers, community service volunteers, drunken college kids, addicts looking to roll somebody small and weak. All those would have been easy to wake up to as pancakes and orange juice. But when somebody knew my name and my face, that was bad. That meant they were targeting me specifically. Maybe the folks at the shelter were mad at me for breaking their stereo. Those Christmas carols had been driving me crazy. Maybe a security camera caught the last bit of pickpocketing I did in the theater district. Hey, I needed money for pizza. Or maybe, unlikely as it seemed, the police were looking for me, wanting to ask about my mother's murder. I packed my stuff, which took about 3 seconds. The sleeping bag rolled up tight and fit in my backpack, with a toothbrush and a change of socks and underwear. Except for the clothes on my back, that's all I owned. With the backpack over my shoulder and the hood of my jacket pulled low, I could blend in with the pedestrian traffic pretty well. Boston was full of college kids. Some of them were more scraggly and more younger looking than me. I turned to Blitz. "Where'd you see these people with the flyers?" "Beacon Street. They're coming this way. Middle-aged white guy and a teenage girl, probably his daughter." I frowned. "That makes no sense. Who?" "I don't know, kid, but I gotta go." Blitz squinted at the sunrise, which was turning the skyscraper's windows orange. For some reason, I never quite understood it. Blitz hated the daylight. Maybe he was the world's shortest, stoutiest, homeless vampire. You should go see Hearth. He's hanging around Copley Square. I tried not to feel irritated. The local street junklings called Hearth and Blitz my mom and dad because one... I think it's missing a word. Knew my mom and dad because one of them would always seem to be hovering around me. I appreciate it, I said. I'll be fine. Blitz chewed his thumbnail. I don't know, kid. Not today. You gotta be extra careful. Why? I glanced over my shoulder. They're coming. I didn't see anybody. When I turned back, Blitz was gone. I hated it when he did that. Just poof, like the guy was a ninja. A homeless vampire ninja. Now I had a choice. Go to Copley Square or hang out around Hearth or head towards Beacon Street and try to spot the people who were looking for me. Blitz's description of them made me curious. A middle-aged white guy and a teenage girl searching for me at sunrise on a bitter cold morning? Why? Who are they? I crept along the edge of the pond. Almost nobody took the trail under the bridge. I could hug the side of the hill and spot anyone approaching the higher path without them seeing me. Snow coated the ground. The sky was eye-anchored blue, and the bare trees' branches looked like they had been dipped in glass. The wind cut through my layers of clothes, but I didn't mind it. My mom used to joke that I was half polar bear. Damn it, Magnus, I chided myself. After 2 years, my memories of her were still a minefield. I stumbled over one, and instantly my composure was thrown to bits. I tried to focus. The man and the girl were coming this way. The man's sandy hair grew over his collar, not like an intentional style, but like he couldn't be bothered to cut it. His baffled expressions reminded me of a substitute teacher's. I knew I was hit by a spit wad, but I had no idea where it came from. His dress shoes were totally wrong for the Boston winter. His socks were different shades of brown. His tie looked like it had been tied while he spun in total darkness. The girl was definitely his daughter. Her hair was just as thick and wavy, tough lighter blonde. She was dressed more sensibly in a snow boots, jeans, and a parka with an orange t-shirt peeking out of the necklace. Her expression was more determined, angry. She gripped a sheaf of flyers as they were essays she's been grading on unfairly. If she was looking for me, I did not want to be found. She was scary. I didn't recognize her or her dad, but something tugged at the back of my skull like a magnet trying to pull out an old memory. Father and daughter stopped where the path forked. They looked around as just now realizing they were standing in the middle of a deserted park at a no thank you o'clock in the dead of winter. Unbelievable, said the girl. I want to strangle him. Assuming she meant me, I hunkered down a little bit more. Her dad sighed. We should probably avoid killing him. He is your uncle. But 2 years, the girl demanded. Dad, how could he not tell us for 2 years? I can't explain Radolf's actions. I never could, Annabeth. I inhaled so sharply, I was afraid they would hear me. A scab ripped off my brain, exposing raw memories when I was 6 years old. Annabeth, which meant the sandy-haired man was Uncle Frederick? I flashed back to the last family Thanksgiving we'd shared. Annabeth and me were hiding in the library at Uncle Ralph's townhouse, playing with dominoes while the adults yelled at each other downstairs. You're lucky you live with your mama, Annabeth stacked another domino on her miniature building. It was amazingly good, with columns in front of it like a temple. I'm going to run away. I had no doubt she meant it. I was in awe with her confidence. Then Uncle Frederick appeared in the doorway. His fists were clenched. His grim expression was at odds with the simmering reindeer on his sweater. Annabeth, we're leaving. Annabeth looked at me. Her gray eyes were a little too fierce for a first grader's. Be safe, Magnus. With a flick of her fingers, she knocked over the domino temple. That was the last time I'd seen her. Afterwards, my mom had been adamant. We're staying away from your uncles, especially Radolf. I won't even give him what he wants, ever. She wouldn't explain what Radolf wanted, or she and Frederick and Radolf had argued about. You have to trust me, Agnes. Being around them, it's too dangerous. I trusted my mom. Even after death, I hadn't any contact with my relatives. Now suddenly they were looking for me. Radolf lived in town, but as far as I knew Frederick and Annabeth still lived in Virginia, yet they were here, passing out flyers with my name and photo on them. Where had they even gotten a photo of me? My head buzzed so badly I missed some of the conversations. To find Magnus, Uncle Frederick was saying. He checked out his smartphone. Randolph is at the city shelter in the South End. He says no luck. We should try the youth shelter across the park. How do we even know Magnus is alive? Annabeth asked miserably. Missing for 2 years? He could be frozen in a ditch somewhere. Part of me was tempted to jump out of the hiding place and be like, ta-da! Even though it had been 10 years since I'd seen Annabeth, I didn't like seeing her distressed, but after so long on the streets, I learned the hard way. You never want to walk into a situation until you understand what's going on. Randolph is sure Magnus is alive, said Uncle Frederick. He's somewhere in Boston. If his life is truly in danger, they set off toward Charles Street, their voices carried away in the wind. I was shriveled now, but I wasn't from the cold. I wanted to run after Frederick, tackle him and demand to hear what is going on. How did Randolph know I was still in town? Why were they looking for me? How was my life in danger now more than any other day? But I didn't follow them. I remember the last thing my mom ever told me. I'd been reluctant to use the fire escape, reluctant to leave her, but she gripped my arms and made me look at her. Magnus, run, hide. Don't trust anybody. I'll find you. Whatever you do, don't go to Randolph for help. Then before I'd made it out the window, the door of our apartment had burst into splinters. 2 pair of glowing blue eyes had emerged from the darkness. I took off a memory and watched Uncle Frederick and Annabeth walk away, veering east from the common. Uncle Randolph, for some reason, he contacted Frederick and Annabeth. He'd gotten them to Boston. All this time, Frederick and Annabeth hadn't known about my mom was dead and I was missing. It seemed impossible. But if it were true, why would Randolph tell them about it now? Without confronting him directly, I could think of only one way to get the answers. His townhouse was in Back Bay, an east walk from here. According to Frederick, Randolph wasn't home. He was somewhere in the South End looking for me. Since nothing started a day better than a little breaking and entering, I decided to pay his place a visit. And that is the end of chapter 1. And oh man, I mean, it's definitely a good beginning. I like it. At this point, thank you guys all for listening. I'll see you guys in the next one. My name has been Prime and I am saying peace.